Yeah, Jules is here very soon, but right now it's the Wake Up Call with Anna on BBC Radio Kent, discussing the Extinction Rebellion protests. They've begun the third day of their new protest called Impossible Rebellion. They are describing it as a 12-day takeover of central London. Police made 52 arrests on Monday as demonstrators blocked roads in the West End, including around Trafalgar Square, and they've been demanding that the government immediately end investment in fossil fuels. Speaking ahead of the opening day, Stephen Fry gave this message of support for protesters.
I know Extinction Rebellion XR are mucky and they make a fuss. They're loud, they're disruptive. They sometimes throw paint and other such things, and they block traffic. But what else is going to make politicians really recalibrate, realign, revolutionise politics so that it faces the horrors of climate change and all the damage we're doing to our planet? It's a very complex and a very difficult situation, but unless we recognise it, that everything has to change, then nothing will change. I've spoken enough. Anyway, good luck to you, XR, and thank you. Lots of love.
Stephen Fry has come in for some flack, actually, for posting that online. I wonder how you feel about it. Do you support the protest? Do you support the way they're going about this? You can get in touch this morning. You can text 81333. Start your message with the word Kent. Let's now talk to Peter Batt, who's one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion in Thanet and has been campaigning at the protest since Monday. Peter, welcome to the Wake Up Call. Thank you for being here. What made you want to get on board with all of this and support XR?
Basically, because I don't think there'll be anything like change quick enough without it. Before XR sort of like came into being, sort of 2 or 3 years ago, climate change was not really getting the sort of coverage that it deserves, and it was quite low down on the list of sort of like public priorities. And it was really only when the protests started in central London and started gumming up, the streets, that it then got the press coverage, and all of the polling research shows that almost immediately afterwards, climate change became one of the top issues that the public thought needed to be addressed. And as a consequence of that, it's really started putting the government under a little bit more pressure. So it's one of the reasons why I got involved, because before Extinction Rebellion, we simply weren't making enough progress.
Yeah, I understand that point about publicity. But some people are saying the methods are actually turning some people off the message. I wonder if that worries you.
Well, I have to say, I think that in the last couple of years, we've actually garnered a lot of public support. I've been surprised, actually, at how positive the public response has been to us. The methods were a completely non-violent campaign. And basically the way that it works is that we create this alternative spectacle that gives the press and the media lots of opportunities to take pictures and actually talk about why we're actually doing the actions that we're doing. We actually try to explain to the public, what we're doing. We apologise for causing disruption, but at the same time say that it's the only way that we feel that there'll be any change. So, although some people might be turned off, I think that overwhelmingly our methods have been successful, and we've actually gained a lot of support.
And actually, we spoke to our reporter earlier, Greg, who's in London at the moment, and he said there was a carnival atmosphere. We'll cross to him again, actually, in just a moment. There will be people, though, Peter, and this you'll be prepared for this. It happens every time. So people saying, but they're hypocrites because, I know some protesters that still eat meat or still take foreign holidays. What would you say to that?
Well, in many ways, we're all hypocrites. We have to, we have no choice because of the way that our economy and our system works. For instance, some people sort of say, well, you still drive a car. Well, if you don't drive a car, in many ways, you won't get lots of work. You can't get employment.
I see. Yeah. So systemic change is what you want.
Yeah, we need systemic change. You cannot all put it on the individual. And the other thing is, we're not fundamentalist about it. You have to give people the choice and the space to actually make the changes sort of like in their own time. We're not like some sort of hardline sort of like faction where we're lecturing people that they have to do this right now, because otherwise all you do is turn people off.
Yeah, the other issue that comes up is the cost of policing, of course, as well, and the effort that the Met Police have to put in. Again, Greg was telling us about it earlier on. He said it's been £50 million since 2019, and we know that we have a problem with resourcing for the police anyway. So, what would you say to that?
Well, again, this is one of the reasons why I think that the campaign could be effective, because one of the I suppose explicit targets was to gum up the works so that you fill the criminal justice system up with people who have simply blocked a road. We know that there will be additional cost in doing this, and again, we apologise for doing it, but we think that the need to address climate change actually justifies the actions. Because, after all, the cost of not dealing with climate change will far outweigh any of that.
And a final, more frivolous point, Peter, but you're camping, right? So how's that going? At least it's not raining on you.
Oh no! I decided not to camp. I'm in my mid-50s, and although,
fair enough.
Although some of my compatriots were camping, I have to say, camping in a London park or whatever does not fill me with any great enthusiasm. So no, I didn't do that.
Don't blame you at all. Well, listen, Peter, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you for being here. And as these protests go on, it will be good to touch base with you again, actually, at some point. So do come and talk to us again. Thank you. That's Peter Batt, one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion in Thanet. I mentioned that our reporter Greg McKenzie is in London at the moment, and we can join him now. Greg, thank you for being here again. So what's the latest where you are, and where are you?
Well, good morning, Anna. I'm in central London, so I'm in Piccadilly Circus. So I'm just underneath the neon lights, the big screens here. There's a visible police presence because just 2 minutes round the corner is the Brazilian embassy. That is the target for today's rebellion. And I've just been told by a member of Extinction Rebellion that their call to action is actually going to be from 11:30. So I'm a bit early, but the police have been here since 6 o'clock when I got down here. So again, there's a heavy police presence. They're kind of all over the West End at the moment. In front of me, there's 5 to my left, there's 10 to my right, and on different roads surrounding Piccadilly. So what will happen later, the fences have already gone up at the Brazilian embassy because that's going to be one of the targets today. So the protesters won't be able to get in. And then a minute up the road from the Brazilian embassy is Shell Oil's HQ. There's visible police presence outside there because in 2019 and 2020, XR managed to get into the building and scour the roof, so the offices were closed for the entire day, and many of the protesters had glued their hands to the doors, the entry points to Shell. So in terms of today, expecting a few more thousand here, and this is kind of day 3 really of these protests. So thus far 102 people have been arrested since Monday. And as for yesterday, there was a lady that was carried away by 4 policemen after spray painting the floor outside HM Revenue and Customs. So that's in Whitehall. So the protests yesterday were kind of Whitehall, then a few pockets in Leicester Square, and kind of different fractions were moving off. But the main bulk was St James's Park, where lots of them gathered. And I believe a lot of them have slept overnight in tents there, getting ready for this morning's actions. So it sounds like a very much expectant atmosphere then where you are, just waiting for that moment when everyone will descend. Absolutely, because last time I was here, because I was back out at these protests in 2019, 2020, and you'd get there because you'd get the tip off, because often what will happen is they don't tend to, Extinction Rebellion don't tend to advertise where they're going to be until the last minute, but obviously members know, so they have secret WhatsApp groups and various channels to communicate to the protesters to where they need to be. And last time I don't remember the police being here in preparation for the protests. Whereas this time round, they're already here. They've been here in situ since I got here this morning at 6. So I kind of did a scout of all the sites from yesterday and Monday. So Covent Garden, where the big pink table went up and 9 protesters locked themselves together underneath that table. There's no remnants of any protests from yesterday in Covent Garden. All the XR stickers and posters and kind of banners, they've all gone. The street cleaners have tidied up the West End. So things are back to normal. I don't want to say this is the calm before the storm, but I mean, we're expecting a few thousand later this morning.
Yeah, and interesting, Greg, yes, you've covered many of these protests and you've been good enough to obviously speak to us at the same time. And I'm just wondering, have you always felt safe? Because we were talking to Peter earlier on, he said the aim is always to be peaceful. Does it always feel like that? Yeah. Yeah,
I think, I've never, touch wood, had a problem at an Extinction Rebellion protest. I mean, they are quite friendly. It's very, and the type of people, there's not so many young people out. You tend to find a lot of older people, and I know the group has been criticised for that in the past, that this is part of the society that are accused of being quite wealthy and quite affluent and have the time to take time off work to come and protest. Some are accused of, not having to work because they have, hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank. So them getting arrested doesn't really affect their career chances. Whereas, average folk here in London,
yes,
you kind of don't want to be getting arrested.
Quite.
And I guess so. So there's lots of criticisms, but again, they are gaining popularity. I mean, that is, you see the numbers now turning up to these protests. They're thousands and thousands, and again, it's always been quite a calm atmosphere. And the only time you see any kind of anger or kind of not violence is when they are being arrested for obstruction, when the police are just trying to do their job, and then obviously that causes the the domino effect where one gets arrested, then everyone tries to jump in to stop that, and then they get arrested, and then it kind of kicks off, and those often will be the photos we'll see in the papers, but ultimately it's a minority as opposed to the majority.
Indeed. It's interesting you mentioned actually the age demographic. The Daily Mail this morning says fury of the grey greens, and there's a picture of some pensioners in some altercations yesterday. But listen, Greg, thank you so much for being there. I know you're going to be there, aren't you, throughout the morning. We'll talk to you soon. That's Greg Mackenzie then, our reporter at those protests. Let's turn now to Mike Neville, retired Met Police Detective Chief Inspector. Mike, thank you as well for being here. I know you were listening to that. And of course. As you heard, the police been there since 6 o'clock. This is a huge effort, isn't it, for the Met Police?
It is. I mean, one thing I would say, I'm 50-odd years old. If I was in a tent in London, I'd be hoping for some climate change right now. It looks miserable outside. But with the police, the problem with the police, of course, is my thing is these champagne socialists with these protests. It's always working class people who suffer because those officers have been dragged in from inner London council estates where they should be focusing on knife crime, burglary, drug dealing, assaults and stuff. And they're not doing that because they're having to deal with these protests. Yeah. And also, it's the working people who've not been to work for 18 months because of the pandemic, who are, bus drivers or van drivers, restaurant workers, people who organise shops, who are going to lose thousands of pounds or lose their jobs because of these protests. Now, if they want to hold these protests, go to Hyde Park. Everybody's got a right to protest. I will absolutely support that. But by blocking off central London at a time when the economic recovery is such that we need to get back to normal, to people paying taxes, we're now like 500 billion in debt. It's just simply not the time to be doing this. And it's a kick in the teeth to people who just want to get on with their lives, earn money and look after their families. You
quite understand your point, absolutely. I suppose if Extinction Rebellion were here, they'd say, well, look, we don't have much time, and if climate change does do what we expect it to do, it will be the deprived communities that suffer the most.
Well, as I say, most people can look out the window and see the weather, and if it's that rapid, how come it's not sun shining right now? And as I say, the vast majority of the population just want to get on with their work. They want to be able to travel into central London to do what they're doing without all this carry on and roads being blocked and whatever else. By, as I say, these people who've got enough money to take 2 weeks off work, It's all right for them to disrupt the communities, to take away police resources, to have the Met spending £50 million on this. It simply isn't good enough, and it's selfish in my view.
Yeah, since 2019, 50 million indeed. A final question, Mike, because the news is hot on our heels, but police reportedly kettled protesters earlier this week. Now, I know that's been controversial, hasn't it, in protest past? So just explain for everyone what it means and what the police do then.
Well, what it does, I had it myself. Went to a football match last night, and we were blocked in. We weren't allowed to go to a car to get away. So the police simply cut off all escape routes, and so the protesters or football fans or whatever are trapped in a certain area, and then the police can decide which way they can go and release them at certain times.
Listen, Mike, thank you so much for being here this morning. Always good to talk to you. That's Mike Neville then, who is a retired Met Police Detective Chief Inspector. Given the other side of things, I wonder where you stand this morning. I would welcome your thoughts. You can text 81333, start your message with the word Kents.